The black CEO of a luxury hotel chain is kicked out from his own hotel, forced to spend the night in a cheap Airbnb. No one knows who he really is. But what happens next will shock you. The rain poured mercilessly over New York City, drenching the streets, the sidewalks, and the lone man walking with his hands shoved into the pockets of his soaked green tracksuit. His sneakers squelched with each step, his breath visible in the cold night air. Towering ahead of him was the grand entrance to one of the most prestigious hotels in the country. He stepped inside, shaking off the cold, but something else hit him harder than the warmth of the lobby: judgment. A group of wealthy guests lounged in the sleek, modern seating area, sipping expensive cocktails. Their laughter hushed as they saw him. One woman clutched her purse closer. A man in a designer suit arched an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed by his appearance. He ignored them and walked straight to the front desk, where a young receptionist, Lisa Carter, barely spared him a glance before returning to her computer screen. Lisa, flatly, "Can I help you?" He nodded. "I'd like a room for the night." Lisa finally looked at him properly, her nose scrunching slightly as she took in his rain-drenched tracksuit. Her expression darkened, suspicion flickering across her face. Lisa, hesitating, do you have a reservation?" "No, but I can pay." Lisa leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Lisa, sir, are you sure you're in the right place?" Matthew raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Lisa forced a polite smile, though her fingers hovered over the keyboard like she was ready to call security. "It's just, we don't usually have walk-ins dressed like—" She cut herself off, eyeing his tracksuit before forcing a nervous chuckle. "Are you looking for the shelter a few blocks down? Or maybe something else?" Matthew's expression hardened. "Something else?" Lisa's tone dropped, her voice laced with barely concealed condescension. "Look, I'm not saying you're up to anything, but we do get people looking for quick cash or, other things. You understand?" Matthew's jaw tightened. "Other things? Like what?" Lisa shifted uncomfortably, then let out an awkward laugh. "Oh, come on, you know what I mean." Before he could respond, another voice cut in. Mr. Winters, a longtime VIP guest, sneered from the lounge area. Mr. Winters, mocking, "Come on, sweetheart. You know this guy isn't here for a room, probably just looking to use the bathroom, or for someone's wallet." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Lisa smirked, emboldened by Winters' words, then turned back to him, her expression hardening. "Lisa, sir, I think it's best if you leave. We don't allow loitering." His jaw clenched. He could handle ignorance, but this was his hotel. "Matthew, I don't think you understand. I'd like to book a—" Lisa, cutting him off sharper. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security." The security guard stationed near the elevators took a step forward, hand resting on his radio. For a moment he considered pushing back, demanding she check her system. But then he glanced around, the way the guests looked at him, the way Lisa's fingers hovered near the phone, ready to call for backup like he was some kind of criminal. Number. He wasn't going to beg to sleep in a place he built. He let out a slow breath, feeling his muscles tighten with frustration. He turned on his heel and walked out into the storm. Behind him he heard Mr. Winters chuckle. "Mr. Winters," to Lisa, laughing. "See? I told you, these guys always give up when you push back a little." But just as he was about to step out, another voice called out. Older woman firmly. "Young lady, is that how you treat paying customers?" Everyone turned. An elegantly dressed older woman, Mrs. Eleanor Sinclair, a longtime guest, stood up from the lounge, her piercing gaze locked onto Lisa. The room tensed. Lisa hesitated. I was just following protocol, ma'am," Mrs. Sinclair. "Protocol? I've stayed in this hotel for 20 years. I've seen all kinds of people come through those doors. But you just humiliated that man in front of everyone. You didn't ask for ID. You didn't ask for payment. You judged him the second he walked in." Lisa swallowed hard. She wasn't expecting pushback. Matthew, standing by the door, watched in silence. For the first time that night, someone spoke up for him. He gave Mrs. Sinclair a slight nod of respect before stepping into the rain. As the doors closed behind him, Lisa let out a nervous breath, her confidence shaken. But she had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, Lisa strutted into work, laughing with her coworker. The previous night was just a blip in her memory, until her manager, Mr. Carter, approached with a huge grin. Mr. Carter: "Lisa! Great news! The CEO is visiting today. And guess what? You've been chosen for special management training." Lisa's eyes widened. "The CEO? Here?" Before Mr. Carter could answer, the front doors opened. Matthew walked in, but this time he wasn't in a tracksuit. He was in an impeccably tailored suit, his commanding presence filling the room. The entire lobby froze. Lisa's stomach dropped. Lisa, whispering, horrified, "Oh my God!" Mr. Carter beamed. "Mr. Lawson, we're honored to have you." Matthew held up a hand, silencing him. His eyes locked onto Lisa. The color drained from her face. "Matthew," calm but firm, "before we start, I'd like to share an experience I had last night." Lisa's heart pounded in her chest. Matthew: "Lisa, do you remember me?" Tears welled in her eyes. She did. Matthew: "You judged me before you even spoke to me. But last night, you weren't turning away a homeless man. You turned away the owner of this entire hotel." Lisa covered her mouth on the verge of tears. As the room quieted, Matthew stood tall, looking around at his employees, his voice softening. "Matthew, now I want to share why I started this hotel chain in the first place. It wasn't just about luxury or business. It was about opportunity." He walked toward the window, gazing out at the city, his eyes distant. "When I was younger, I didn't have much. I was raised in a low-income neighborhood. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us afloat. And I remember one day when I was just a teenager, I went to a hotel with my mom. She was trying to book us a room for the night." Matthew's voice cracked slightly as he continued. "But the manager, he looked at my mom, judged her based on her appearance, and told us there were no rooms available. He didn't even try to help. It broke my heart, and I made a promise to myself that I'd never allow someone to feel the way I did in that moment." He turned back to face the team, a quiet strength in his eyes. "Matthew, I built this hotel for people who deserve respect, no matter where they come from or how they look. We don't judge, we welcome, and that is what we'll always stand for." There was a long pause before Mr. Carter stepped forward, his voice filled with newfound respect. Mr. Carter: "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Your vision is what makes this place truly special." Matthew smiled. "It's not just my vision anymore. It's all of ours." With that, the room filled with applause again. This time, it wasn't just about the lesson. It was about respect, kindness, and understanding. Matthew: "You're not fired, but you will be retrained, because in this hotel, we never judge a book by its cover." The room was silent, then suddenly, applause. Lisa, humbled beyond words, wiped her tears and nodded. She had learned her lesson. Everyone had.